Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss whether or not Reform UK will have a major vote in the Conservative leadership contest, which sounds a bit mad, as well as how senior Tories are really doing themselves no favours in the response to the far-right terror attacks. Because things have calmed down a bit now on the racist lunatic front, at least for now. Hopefully that's it, but obviously we're waiting with bated breath for this weekend. But I think I've now got space to discuss a few other things. And the Tory leadership contest, which is the thing I said would be the main point of interest this month, hasn't gone away. There are definitely points of interest which ordinarily I'd have been discussing. So I'm going to try and jam a few of them together now. So the Guardian have been reporting a bit of an exclusive. So after the 5 Reform UK MPs entered Parliament, Nigel Farage instigated a bit of a shake-up of his top team. It included sacking Ben Habib as deputy leader, which I discussed at the time. He did not take that well. But it also involved appointing a guy called Zia Yusuf to be party chair. But as the Guardian spotted, Yusuf is a Conservative donor and Conservative Party member. So they tapped the Conservative Party on the shoulder and said, that guy who's now chair of Reform UK, did he leave your party first or is he still a member? Turned out he was still a member and they just hadn't noticed until a journalist pointed it out for them. Which immediately begs the question, what if there are a lot of Conservative Party members who are also paid up supporters of Reform UK? I can't say members of Reform UK because they're not. If you pay to join Reform UK, you don't actually become a member. They sometimes claim you do. Oh, you've got tens of thousands of members. It's like, but you've got no membership rights. You're just giving them money in return for nothing, really. You're also giving them your details. It's basically a donation. So it's not even clear how the Conservative Party would even be able to tell if any of their own party members were paying to pretend to be Reform UK members. And even if there were ways to tell, I'm not convinced the Conservatives who didn't even notice if someone with a publicly announced Reform UK position, such as chairing the actual party, was still on their books. And this could have a material impact on the Conservative leadership. Nigel Farage has already stated that he wants to destroy the Conservative Party or take it over. He seems to alternate between the two, depending on whether he's just been drinking beer or his own dodgy gin. Now, let's say a significant proportion of the Conservative membership are also paid up members, sponsors, donors of Reform UK. And Reform UK are claiming tens of thousands of people have done so. So they're sort of in two political parties now. And given that members of a broad church party like the Conservatives tend to be disproportionately more to the extremes of politics than their voter base, that means there might well be a very large number who like the sound of Reform UK. Maybe the only thing stopping them from just being fully committed to Reform UK is the fact that they recognise only the Conservatives can realistically win power on the right. But let's say the next best thing is being members of both. And let's say Reform UK are aware of the possibility here and use newsletters and various other means of communication to make various arguments for and against certain candidates for the Conservative leadership contest. And those people use the same arguments. It's not just that it swings their votes, they use the same arguments in their local Conservative groups, maybe swing a few other people. Reform UK may be able to affect a significant level of influence on the choice of the next Conservative Party leader. And we know they sort of did a little bit of this before, when UKIP flooded into the Conservative Party, just over 10 years ago, which is what sort of created the impetus for Brexit in the first place. And the Conservatives already got enough problems. I said myself, I don't think party members in my own party should actually vote for the leader. And my practical reason for that is that the party members are not politically tuned into politics as such. They're more interested in politics. It doesn't necessarily mean more astute. And also, as members, we don't fit the spread of political views of Labour voters. We're very much out of kilter. Much less the Labour plus swing voters that you need to appeal to in order to win elections. Whereas MPs do tend to represent a more realistic spread. But more importantly, way more importantly, they know the leadership candidates. They know them personally, not just their PR. So they're less likely to be fooled by a bit of charisma. They've seen them in action. That's not to say MPs will always pick the best bet, because MPs are idiots as well. but they are way more likely to because of that familiarity. They are very unlikely to pick a truly awful choice. So you already have that problem for a party allowing members to choose the leader, even given that it's from a shortlist whittled down by MPs. And Conservative MPs do at least whittle it down to 2, and there's no monkey business with other groups. So they do have an advantage over Labour in this regard. But it is still a weakness. And it's a particular weakness if a competing party has ways to directly contact Conservative Party members and put forward arguments about choice of leader. And Nigel Farage has a history of promoting the idea of other political parties electing the most racist leader they can find. Because look at the ways the various leadership contenders have dealt with the riots. I said this is Starmer's first emergency, didn't have long to prepare. But it was also an emergency for Conservative leadership candidates. It was their chance to say how they would have responded as Prime Minister. And they blew it. Some more than others. For a start, none of them even mentioned it on Twitter, despite all of them being active on Twitter for at least 2 days after the violence began. Over a week later, Kemi Badenoch has still not posted anything. Like, she's supposed to be the front runner. She's been posting messages on Twitter. She's still been active on Twitter. So it's not like she's taken a break from the platform or something, which would be odd during an actual campaign anyway. But complete silence. Wouldn't someone up for the role of leadership have something useful to say during an actual national emergency? And if so, wouldn't they be promoting that message on every available platform? Because she's had very few things to say. The only time she's had anything to say on the riots is when she was asked directly by a journalist, as far as I can tell. I think it was in the Telegraph. And she obviously doesn't have the confidence to say anything too committed because she's not even promoting articles about what she has said on the subject on her own Twitter platform. And if I've noticed this, obviously Conservative MPs have done so. There's an article published yesterday reporting on Conservatives criticising Badenoch for being missing in action, behaving like a submarine. Especially when she's not just a leadership candidate. She's the shadow communities minister. Communities have been attacked. She's got nothing to say about the matter. I've already said I doubted enough Tory MPs would think enough of her to put her on the final ballot. You know, she's got this appeal amongst members, but I think that's been driven by the media. And surely her hiding from saying anything at all about an ongoing national emergency is only going to add to the idea she's not cut out for tough times. And therefore, she's not cut out for the job of leading the Conservative Party when they are at their lowest ebb. But then you look at, alternatives then. So you go Robert Jenrick. But he's also been getting himself into a muddle. He said that people who praised God in public should be immediately arrested. Oh, only if they say it in Arabic, though. So Jacob Rees-Mogg's fine. But he's already tried to say that the vast majority of people saying Allahu Akbar are peaceful. So if you take the two comments together, what he's saying is, oh yeah, people who say this are mostly peaceful, but they should be arrested on sight. So he's saying peaceful Muslims should be arrested the second they open their mouths in praise of God. I mean, at any time, this would be a ridiculous combination of things to say. But at a time when the country is almost entirely united in its condemnation of violent thugs targeting mostly Muslim populations, what sort of person who wants to lead the Conservative Party back to government decides, oh yeah, this is the perfect time to throw out some Islamophobic comments? The idea that either of these people would be a match in any sort of debate or would appeal to moderate swing voters just seems very far-fetched. Yet these are the two most prominent candidates. They're the most heavily favoured by the Tory media. And it's very likely that if Nigel Farage were able to influence the Conservative membership by having direct access to, say, 20 or 30 Conservative Party members, because a load of them are signed up to the Reform UK fan club, then he is very likely to be pushing one of these two and warning people against the alternatives. And the Conservative Party itself is unlikely to be winning fans amongst the public during this emergency. The two most prominent candidates for future leadership are either saying nothing at all or saying contradictory things. The actual leader's not even in the country. There was all this talk about, oh, Keir Starmer's going on holiday during the riots. No, he didn't. But Rishi Sunak has. A reporter that Sunak's disappeared off to, guess where? California earlier this week. That's where he is. It's a bit like the summer of 2022. The Conservatives suffered polling, reputational losses, because Boris Johnson, who was still Prime Minister, but the leadership contest was going on, he refused to address public concerns about escalating energy bills. He says, well, okay, yes, I'm Prime Minister, but I'm not going to be, so I'm not going to deal with it. And I'm afraid no one else can deal with it because we don't know who's coming after me. So the government just did nothing that summer. And it cost them in terms of public opinion of them. Now, just as then, the Conservatives are paralysed by having leadership contenders. They're trying to work out the best way to promote their own candidacies. And the leader of the party, failing to make it clear exactly what the party's position is on these rights, not even in the country. He's basically said, oh yeah, they're bad, these things. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit more about your party's position here? Obviously, for a leadership contest, the contenders are having to focus their appeal on their colleagues, because they're the ones who decide who gets onto the final ballot, and party members, because they're the ones who make the final choice. So it should really be for the ongoing leader to maintain efforts to appeal to the voters, because the voters are neither here nor there for the leadership contest, because they're not going to decide on it. But the voters are very important for that leader to be able to get the party back into electoral contention. So the current leader has to provide that covering fire for their replacement, in the interests of the party. But Sunak is also missing in action, more so than the person the media keep insisting is the front runner to replace him. What a mess. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.